Thanks, Joel. Okay, this first question is from Jessica. I love this question because she says, Joel and Sina, I really appreciate the episode regarding vitamin D supplementation. I have found myself reflecting on how the supplement industry has, in many ways, become just as bad as the pharmaceutical industry. We are quick to criticize the pharmaceutical industry for its predatory nature, but the supplementation industry seems to take advantage of people as well. They both seem to play on our fear, our desire to live as long as possible. But is a supplement really the answer? And then natural health experts talk about the power of the human body, but then they typically end their talk with promoting their latest supplement or healing protocol. And then she goes on to say, I'm not saying that healing can't be found in a supplement or a pharmaceutical, because I'm sure it can, but I do appreciate the perspective that we don't know very much. And what we think we know seems to change so quickly. So what does that really say about our knowledge? I love this question. So yes, I'm going to start out because, this is really near and dear to my heart, because some of you may know I worked in the supplement industry. I used to formulate supplements. That's how I got my first job out of college. And I completely agree. It took me a while to see this, but most of us are just chasing biochemistry in a pill form, whether that's pharmaceuticals or supplements. And I'll say there's no judgment here. Like I said, I used to formulate supplements, right? And I took them. So I'm in a prime position to kind of pull that curtain back. So I think that at some point we've all trusted big pharma, right? Like some of us have probably taken aspirin, or we've used Neosporin, we've used cough syrup or an antacid or an antibiotic. So we may not trust big pharma now, but now we're still trusting the big chemical companies, because there are quite a few of these big pharma companies that actually create some of the most widely sold supplements. So the one a day line,
turmeric and things like that.
yes. So Bayer actually made the one a day line, one a day supplement.
Right.
Centrum. So Centrum is still the number one doctor recommended and pharmacist recommended multivitamin. It's the number one selling multivitamin in the world, and it's owned by Pfizer. Right. Well, now it's owned by Haleon, that's a spinoff of Pfizer. Emergency, right? I even took Emergency when that one came out. That was like a top seller. It is the largest selling vitamin C line in the United States. It's owned by Pfizer. They also make Caltrate, which is the number one selling brand of calcium in the world. And actually, Nature's Way, which sounds really cool, right? Nature's Way. It's actually a subsidiary of Schwab Pharmaceuticals. So they're all, they're kind of intertwined. Like the pharmaceutical industry is very smart, right? They saw a space in the marketplace that they can kind of monopolize, and they're doing that in a lot of these mainstream brands. So most of the vitamins in these supplements are synthetic. Okay. Now there are some supplements that are made using whole foods, and you will usually see those listed on the label. So instead of seeing like a chemical name, you'll actually see the whole food. So for instance, I still have in my medicine cabinet, I have a turmeric supplement, but it is made from organic whole turmeric. So it's like dehydrated, ground up turmeric. And it says that on the bottle. So those are whole food supplements. And I'm not including that in this other category where I'm saying the majority of supplements are actually synthetic. Okay. So this excludes those natural supplements. So like Jessica, I find it fascinating because a lot of us spend a lot of time and money trying to avoid things like the artificial flavors and synthetic chemicals and GMOs and colorings, but then we'll pop the supplements. And some of these supplements, in fact, are derived from things like petroleum, or coal tar derivatives or hydrogenated sugars. They can be processed with industrial acids like formaldehyde or acetone. So they're also based on the reductionist thinking, which is What Fernando brought up in our follow-up oxalate podcast was all of this is based on reductionist thinking. When you work in a lab, you're using reductionist thinking. As I mentioned previously, the scientific method is based on reductionism. We control variables and we try to isolate a target compound. The pharmaceutical industry and the supplement industry both do that. They both practice reductionism, which can actually be quite dangerous because these targeted compounds like vitamin C or folate, they're isolated, and then we use them as a template to make the synthetic version, and we put them in a supplement to sell for your health. But the way that they actually do that oftentimes is when they're trying to isolate a single metabolite, they get a sample from the body, they add chemicals to it, to try to isolate it, break it apart from its structures. They'll spin it down, and then they'll say that they isolated that metabolite. So then they attempt to determine the function of that metabolite in a laboratory setting. Well, that's not actually how the body works, right? So you can't actually observe any of these, what we call nutrients or these compounds, actually in the body. Everything in the body affects everything else. That's the holistic approach. It's all connected. But we take a tiny piece out, put in a lab setting, and see how it reacts, and then we assume it's going to react the same way in the body. We don't even know if what we isolated from that sample is real, right? So did that chemical really exist? Or was it some kind of chemical precipitate that was made in the process of adding the chemicals to that sample and spinning them down? Did we create that chemical in the process of trying to isolate it? We actually don't even know, right? This is part of what is an assumption you have to make, is that the chemical that you isolated is real, right? So that's another part of the assumptions based on that science in its limitations has to assume is correct. But regardless of the process, we take these synthetic versions, concentrate them, and sell them as a supplement. But we actually don't even know if all of these supplements really do help people. So let me back up and tell you a little bit about why. So this comes from somebody, like I said, that formulated supplements. So the way that you often do that is you isolate one vitamin, for instance, you look in the literature and you say, okay, like vitamin C prevents like scurvy, for instance, or bleeding gums. Okay, so I'm going to put vitamin C in this supplement. Okay, well, how much should I be putting in this supplement? All right, well, I see in these studies on mice that they have a toxicity at this level. So I'm going to back it down, a certain standard deviation, but then scale it up for the equivalent of what would be for a human. And then I'm going to see, well, what's the daily value, right? What's the government's daily value, your daily requirement based on the government of vitamin C? So I'm going to choose some amount that's between that daily value and that toxicity level that I have calculated based on assumptions from a mouse study, right? And then some compounds don't even have a daily value. So then you're actually just guessing. And so then you actually go look what else is in the marketplace. So you want your levels to be somewhere around what everybody else has in the marketplace, right? But different enough that yours is going to then stand out. So this is really a guessing game. And we're finding out that sometimes we're wrong. And the reason is because in science, you actually have a lot of assumptions. You base a lot of the studies on assumptions and bias. So I pulled this quote just for Jessica. This is from the Public Library of Science Medicine, like the hugest database, right, of the literature. This is what it says. For many current scientific fields, claimed research findings may often be simply accurate measures of the prevailing bias. So in other words, we're designing these studies that simply affirm an existing bias, and then we build upon that bias. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you will.
Friends, want to dive deeper into our thought-provoking conversations? Become part of the Beyond Labels family today by joining below. For any gift amount, you'll get access to the full uncut episodes.
Every contribution, whether big or small, keeps this podcast going.
So join us and expand your Beyond Labels experience. Thank you.